TCU hangs on late for a 42-36 win over Baylor. Plus, men's basketball has an exhibition on the road in Stephenville, Texas. Plus, women's soccer and women's volleyball are both hitting on all cylinders at the right time of year. We're going to get into all of that on this episode of Frogs Insider. Hey, Frog fans, welcome into another episode of Frogs Insider. Jamie Plunkett here with Melissa Truebosser, as always, breaking down everything latest and greatest across the TCU athletics landscape. We are part of the Dave Campbell's College Podcast Network. You can find the show wherever you get your podcasts. It includes our show and a show for every D1 program in the state of Texas. A very fun group to be a part of. Melissa's been doing some excellent football previews with folks all across the network over the course of the season when appropriate. So go follow that feed wherever you get your podcasts, or just follow the Frogs Insider feed wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating and a review. Go over to the YouTube channel, check out all the videos, like all the videos, and leave a subscription there as well. Treeb,
Jamie.
we've had a chance to sleep on it. TCU really wins this football game 42-21. And then after the lightning delay, the final 3 minutes get a little sketchy. Some, as Sonny Dykes put it, catastrophic events take place in all three aspects of the game. Scoop and score for Baylor, a onside kick recovery, a 95-yard touchdown drive. Interesting stuff all across the board in those final 3 minutes. But as Jeremy Clark wrote today, he implored people not to essentially make a mountain out of a molehill of those final 3 minutes of game time. You've slept on this game as well. How are you feeling about this win 24 hours later?
That's how I feel. I pretty much. I think that game had so many mitigating factors. And I would be 100% to write it off as weird college football, 2.5 hours of delays, chaos, whatever, empty stadium after the third delay. If it wasn't another mark in a pattern, right? And that being said, and I want to reiterate, TCU owns the saddle, the skillet, and whatever, the shield, I guess is what we call it. And
I guess
that's what we've been asking for. Beat your rivals, beat teams in Texas, and that is good. And there was a lot of weirdness that happened. But I think the thing that is kind of stuck in my craw, so to speak, is Sonny was very fired up in the postgame. Zero problem with that, except it felt like he was calling out the media and the fan base for holding him to the standard he set and to the expectation that he set, and competing for Big 12 titles and winning games against your rival and expecting to be able to go on the road and beat teams that are 2-4 and things like that. And he kept saying things that happened to us, where I felt like a lot of what happened because TCU made those decisions, not outside of the weather, obviously not controllable. So sure. I'm super conflicted because it was a win. And like you said, had those lightning delays never happened, Baylor maybe scores one more time, right? Like they did get some things going. Sawyer did look good in the fourth quarter. If Josh doesn't fumble, then it's probably a different game. But at the end of the day, those things happen. Some of them were in your control and some of them weren't. The taunting penalty, the personal foul, those types of things are in your control. And they've habitually been happening. And so I want to be clear, as Sonny said, this program is the winningest program in the Big 12 for the last 4 seasons since he arrived. TCU was 11-3 in their last 14 games or whatever it is. And I'm not saying I'm dissatisfied or I think that we need a coaching change, but I do think it's fair to continually ask, is there the development and the accountability that we expect or we need to see in order for this to be a championship caliber program? Because I look at what is happening in other programs, BYU at Arizona State, Texas Tech, trying to think like even Utah to a degree. They're still, I think, a competitive program. And if you want to be Houston, if you want to legitimately compete, you cannot risk falling behind. You'll have your opportunity against Iowa State, Houston, and BYU to establish what kind of program you are compared to them. But I want to see TCU take those next steps. And I don't know that we've consistently seen that happen. And they have a great opportunity against some of the better teams they've played in the last 2 seasons here over the next month of the season.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where, and I said this on the post game, you can't. The 11-3 over the last 14 is a fun statistic, and you only have the opportunity to beat the teams that are scheduled to play you, right? So, like, to an extent, he's taking Sonny and TCU have taken care of business almost to the best of their ability over these last 14 games. You gave up 257 rushing yards against Baylor last year. You didn't have your starting 2 defensive tackles, where that game maybe looks a little different. The SMU loss is just wildly disappointing last year. But beyond that, they really have in large part taken care of business, aside from Arizona State and Kansas State, which, the Kansas State game, you just got your ass kicked. Like, that is what it is. Yeah. It happens. You didn't show up, and that's what happens when you don't show up. The Arizona State game, we've belabored, blowing a 17-point lead and not being able to run the ball. But since those 2 games, TCU showed Saturday that they were willing to run the ball and stick with the run. Game State had a little bit to do with that, but also they leaned on Baylor early before they had established a lead. When Baylor was up 7-0, TCU ran the ball 5 straight times when they were down 7-0 with Kavorian Barnes, and that set up a really fun RPO touchdown pass to DJ Rogers to cap that drive off, right? So they've shown now, hey, we understand that when we have the opportunity to lean on somebody, we should probably take it. And so they did that, I thought, well, for the most part, Saturday. So to me, that showed coaching development, right? Coaching growth, which I thought was really good to see. The defense was much better in late down situations Saturday than they have been in recent weeks. And some of that was Sawyer Robertson didn't have his best day throwing the ball. But some of that was they were markedly just better at getting pressure on Sawyer. The coverage was better, right? Jamel Johnson, I thought, had a really good day in coverage after we've called him out the last couple of weeks for being pretty bad at it. He was targeted 8 times. He only allowed 3 catches for 24 yards, and he had a pick and a pass breakup. So, like, he had a really good day in coverage, which was nice to see. Vernon Glover, I think, is developing into a really good cornerback 1. He had some contested catches over his head, but I never thought he was truly that bad out of position on Saturday. They got to figure out cornerback 2 really, really quickly. But I think having slept on this game and understanding kind of just the craziness of 2 hours of weather delay and, just the confluence of events in those final 3 minutes that made everybody's butt pucker. I'm inclined at this point to just say rivalry games were weird. All the weirdness seemed to show up in the last 3 minutes of the football game, and TCU still managed to get the stop when they needed it. Shout out to Namdi Obiazor for coming up big with an interception basically at the same spot that Shad Banks had an interception in 2021, by the way, going the other direction, but still very fun. And on the Baylor sideline. So I say all that to say, yes, there are still some concerning trends, right? And we talked about it on the last show. TCU is 8-10 against teams with winning records, who have winning records at the end of the season. So that's from 22 to 24. And 6 of those wins came in 2022, right? So 2-8 across 2023 and 2024 against teams who finished the season with winning records. I think they're going to add at least 2 this year when you look at SMU and Baylor. And then you have an opportunity, like you said, against some really good teams, especially in November, with BYU, Iowa State, Houston, and Cincinnati, to add to that tally. Now, this is an opportunity after this West Virginia game with the bye week to take a deep breath, put some things together, maybe add a couple wrinkles to your offensive game plan, and say, we need to end this year like we ended 2024, and just really start clicking on all cylinders. It's going to be a much more challenging back half to the season than 2024 was. But if you really want to show, and if you really want to if you're Sonny and you want to come into a press conference like that and have that kind of energy, then this is a really good opportunity over the next month and a half to back that energy up and plant your flag and make a point. Because if you don't, then the conversation is going to keep happening the way it's been happening, where, hey, they take care of business against teams that have losing records, but when push comes to shove against good teams, TCU struggles. And right now that's the narrative because that's the reality.
Like, I just want to be great, man. I want to be great, right? And Sonny Dykes wants to be great, and Josh Hoover wants to be great, and Andy Avalos and Kendall. Like, nobody doubts that this team wants to be great, that these guys want to win. I have zero question of that. And that 3 minutes can be an absolute blip on the radar. Like, there were plenty of games in 2022 where TCU should have lost.
Yeah.
Kansas State, Oklahoma State for sure during the regular season. There were plenty of times where that team willed itself to a victory. And I think that's what we need to see. I need to see them beat an Iowa State team that is on its heels a little bit because of injuries at home. TCU plays really well at home. I need to see them go on the road at BYU. And when's the last big road win this team has had? Like, that you can very easily change the narrative if you can beat BYU and Houston on the road, or if you can play BYU in a really good game. And if BYU's a really good team, like watching them last night against Utah, they certainly are flawed, but that team they have that will to win. They have that ability to push and overcome. Like, that's what you want to see. This team is face adversity and rise up and overcome it. And they did that Saturday against Baylor. Right. Mm-hmm. They created the adversity, but then they overcame it. Right. We saw them do that, I think against SMU to a degree. We saw them do it against Colorado. But you need to do it. You need to keep doing it. You need to do it in that stretch of 4 games that look so daunting compared to what we expected at the beginning of the season. So I think that I think that as fans, as media, as whatever role we play, the people that listen to this podcast, 2 things can be true. You could be super excited that TCU beat Baylor in an absolutely wild, unhinged game. You can also say, okay, I need to see more. I need to see them build upon that. You're right. From Kansas State to Baylor, we saw a much better coaching decision as far as running the football. It was working against Kansas State. They gave up on it before either of us, and most people would say they needed to, truly. Mm-hmm. They struggled in the first quarter against Baylor, but they kept running the football. And when they needed to pick up yards late, you saw them break Major open for that big long run that's a 65-yard run is a good portion of their rush total. But they earned it, and you just need to see them continue to be able to do that. And you just see them do it against good defenses, because Baylor's defense is terrible. But they also made them look worse, I think, with the way that they played and executed that game plan. So I think we can be super glad that TCU won. We can be excited about being our rival, and we can still want to see more. I think that's a completely reasonable thing. Go to Morgantown, take care of business on the road against a really bad West Virginia team. Playing in Morgantown's tough. TCU's really struggled there historically, so you have a chance in a get-right game you don't need to blow them out, but you need to look and control the situation, and then take that bye week, like you said, and prep for a 4-game stretch. TCU can go 3-1 down the stretch. They could certainly, with some help, end up in the Big 12 championship game. If you go 2-2, you're probably out of that picture. I would almost say for sure. But that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad 2-2, depending on how the season finishes. Enjoy the moment. It's okay to still consider what the big picture is going to be, but we can only take it 1 week at a time.
Yeah, I think I'll be really interested to see Parker's "How Bad Did We Get Beat" chart on Monday morning, because when you look at the final kind of tally here, TCU averaged 6.2 yards per play to Baylor's 4.9. The Frogs won the turnover battle 4-1. Mm-hmm. They converted better on third downs than Baylor did, and they ran the ball much better. They averaged over 5 yards a carry to just less than 3.5 for Baylor. So, I think when you look at just the down-to-down, play-to-play basis, I think the chart, and look, I'm not good at predicting Parker's charts, but I think this chart is going to show that even in spite of those 3 minutes, TCU down-to-down was really pretty dominant in this football game.
I agree.
And so if you, like you said, if TCU can go to Morgantown which, by the way, they opened as a 14.5-point favorite in Morgantown against West Virginia. If you can go to Morgantown and just, hey, look, we're going to pedal to the metal, beat their ass for 60 minutes. We're not only going to cover, but we're going to like try to double up on the spread here. Then I think the 3 minutes of the last 3 minutes against Baylor are a distant memory for most people. Just because it's like, hey, yeah, we acknowledge that those 3 minutes were not up to standard. And by the way, this is how we respond to not being up to standard. Because they responded to not being up to standard against Kansas State with a win over a rival.
Yeah.
And now you can say, well, the last 3 minutes of that game weren't great. So let's respond by putting 60 full minutes of just complete belt to you know what over a team that is far inferior and, should not probably even be close at any point in time other than the opening whistle, right? And then from there you enter a bye week. You're 6-2, and you've got you've kind of cleansed the palate of what we've been talking about for the last 24 hours, and you're ready to kind of move on.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I think to me, it's going to be about that down-to-down dominance more than the final score. Like, you don't want to play this West Virginia team close because that would be, no offense to our wonderful Mountaineer friends who we love, embarrassing. But I think it said if you can have that down-to-down dominance, just, again, continuing to build on the momentum. And like you referenced, we saw them do that over the final 6 games a season ago. Didn't necessarily end up as fulfilling a season, I think, as we would have liked. I think this one has a chance to be an incredibly fulfilling finish because you get to play some really difficult competition. You have a couple of really difficult road games. And Houston and Cincinnati just look a heck of a lot different than they did a season ago. So a little bit of revenge for that Houston team, and you get Cincinnati at home. That to me is going to be such a fascinating game. That's so far away, don't need to talk about it, but the way their lines play, I think is going to be, that'll tell us a lot about how much TCU has developed over the second half of the season. But that is like 6 weeks away. So
it is. But looking at the standings right now, TCU is sitting in 7th in the Big 12, but they are in a conference record tie with Iowa State, Utah, Baylor, Kansas, and Kansas State all at 2-2.
Hilarious.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you've got Houston, Texas Tech, and Arizona State all at 3-1, BYU and Cincinnati at 4-0. And if you just clocked, folks who are listening, what I said, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and Iowa State are all currently ahead of TCU in the standings, and TCU has all of them on the schedule. Right? All of those teams, aside from Iowa State, who is 5-2, are already bowl eligible. BYU's undefeated.
Yeah.
Right? Since he's undefeated in league play, their only loss is an opening week loss to Nebraska. And so if there was ever an opportunity for somebody to be like, no, I am a team builder, I am a good coach, I can beat winning record teams, like November is it. November is it. It's the perfect opportunity to shut people up. It truly is. And in doing that, if you have success in November, not only are you probably passing a lot of these teams in the conference standings, but you are setting yourself up very nicely for an opportunity to go play in Arlington. Like, you still are. And they do need a little bit of outside help to make that happen, but take care of business, right? Take care of business and make other people trip and fall. Don't trip and fall and just open the door for someone else.
Yeah.
So look, the as Kirk Sarlos likes to say, everything they want to accomplish is still out in front of them. But at the end of the day, like, you've got to be the one to go and take care of yours so that you don't look back on it and say, well, we kind of left this one out. We left this one out there. We kind of let that one get away.
You can't be a team that worries about things happening to you. You have to go out and make things happen for you.
Yeah.
I think that was the thing that kind of stuck in my craw, that kind of I just left a bad taste in my mouth. I had no problem with Sonny being fired up and reminding us that he's won a lot of football games. I'd love to see more of that. But I think that as a team, I hope that those players see it as some of this is in our control and we need to take ownership of it. And I really believe this team has the talent. You have a quarterback who is statistically one of the best in the conference and who, when he looks good, is as good as anybody in the country, right? He's got to prove himself on the road. You have an offensive line. You made some changes. You shook things up, and it's been pretty effective. Like, that looks like a good choice. When your running back, your first string running back is healthy and your best wide receiver is healthy, you look pretty damn efficient on the offensive side of the ball. You went to 12 personnel so much, and it was a great adjustment that team. Yeah. I mean, and they made it out of necessity, but they made the choice and it worked. And so those are the things that we want to see week in and week out that show us that you are adaptable and that I don't want to be a middle of the pack Big 12 team in a conference that is epically fun and epically evenly matched. Like, that's what makes it great. I don't want to be in the middle of that. I want TCU to be at the top looking down on everybody else and saying, oh, how cute that everybody is the same, but we're better than everybody else. Like, that's ultimately, I think, what we all want. And I think that's what Sonny Dykes wants and Mike Buddy wants and everyone wants. So lots of positives to take away. Jeremy is right in saying the last 3 minutes should not define the entirety of Saturday. And I do say entirety because I think I got there around 9 a.m. and left at 7. That was 10 hours. It was a long day. And then I didn't even do 14 innings of baseball Friday night or, 6 hours of basketball Sunday. So, yeah.
It's been a grind these last 3 days.
You have been on your grind. So, yeah, the TLDR, right? There was a lot of good. There was a little bit of bad. TCU has an opportunity to get the bad taste out of its mouth on Saturday in a night environment in a Morgantown with a West Virginia team that looks really close to wanting to give up on the season.
Yeah, and you can make them quit.
Yeah.
Like, you have the chance to make them quit.
And you didn't do it against Kansas State, so do it in Morgantown.
That's right. Get your lick back. A couple of things before we fully move on. You mentioned a lot of 12 personnel, so I wanted to touch on this from my snap count and PFF grades article on Sunday over at Horned Frog Blitz. The 4 tight ends that played, DJ Rogers, Kamorian Pimpton, Lafayette Kiowa, and Chase Curtis, all posted really good blocking grades, both in the pass game and the run blocking game. Pimpton only played 9 snaps, but the other 3 played 30 plus snaps each. They all had pass blocking grades in the 60s, with Kiowa and Chase Curtis both posting 69s. Very nice. And then DJ Rogers and Lafayette also had run blocking grades in the 70s, with a 72 for DJ and a 74.7 for Lafayette. So when Sunday was talking in postgame about how well the tight ends played and how well they blocked up front, that I think had a lot to do with how well TCU ran the football.
100%.
Because, I mean, the offensive line, I wrote this on Sunday too, they had their best game. Like, they had their cleanest game probably against North Carolina, but North Carolina's really bad.
A joke.
And so this was at least competent defense, if not a good one. And TCU's offensive line, in spite of missing Ryan Hughes, the switch at the tackle positions, flipping the 2 starting tackles, you only had Cade Bennett for 6 snaps before he left because he's dealing with something pretty significant right now. And then, Cooper Powers was your swing guard, and he got 20 snaps, right? Yeah. So they all played incredibly, incredibly well. Ben Taylor Whitfield was the highest graded offensive lineman of the day. He had a 67. But his
oh, God.
Well, hang on now.
6.7. I was 6.7. Not.
Well, his real grade was 66.6, but rounding up. His pass blocking grade was an 86.5.
Wow.
It was probably. I think it was the first or second best pass blocking grade any TCU offensive lineman has had in a game this year. He was great. Yeah. Cooper Powers in 20 snaps had a 79.9 pass blocking grade. Cade Bennett in 6 snaps had a 77. Colton Deary in 72 snaps had a 77.7 pass blocking grade. Quentin Harris was 75. Carson Bruno was 75. And then they all pretty much had run blocking grades in the 60s, which has improved from their 50s-ish run blocking grade that they've had for pretty much the entire season. So
it's crazy that we're halfway through the season and we're playing. I mean, how many offensive linemen was that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 took snaps.
And
now Bennett only took 6. Dylan Kinney only took 1. So really you're talking about 6 guys. But like, they all played incredibly well. They played incredibly well. They had help from the tight ends. Of note as well, Kavorian Barnes had a pass blocking grade of 72.9. So he did great. I mean, Josh Hoover didn't take a sack for the first time in a month.
Yeah.
He had taken 9 sacks in the last 3 games. They kept him fully upright. The running game helped take the pressure off of him. The offensive line made sure he could stay in the pocket, stand tall, and deliver the ball on time. He did that to his best wide receivers. Like, we saw the vision.
Yeah.
In so many different ways, we saw the vision on Saturday, but those final 3 minutes clouded it, I think, a little bit. And we were kind of responsible for that, I think, in the postgame, talking about it the way we did. But also, I think everybody else saw what we saw as well.
Oh, 100%. And I do think that, oh no, I just lost my train of thought. Hold on. Let me see if it'll come back. It's probably not going to. Oh, we talked about this a little bit too. A lot of what they had to do was with Banjack banged up and not able to go 100% with Ed Small, it forced them into what may ultimately be, like you said, the vision that they need to be adopting. So give me more 12 personnel, please, especially when you start playing some of these physical teams like Iowa State and BYU, where it's going to be a lot more challenging to run the ball. We saw that you can make it work, and it elevated the play of everybody around them. Like just making that change and when you have 4 tight ends who are all guys that are capable of being impactful players, both in the passing game and in the running game with their blocking, get them on the field. That's when you're at your best right now. I really hope we see more of that going forward.
Fully agree with you. TCU opens as a 14.5-point favorite over West Virginia. That game is kicking off at 2:30.
No, it's a night game. It's
Night game?
Yeah, it's a night game in West Virginia. That game kicks off at 5 p.m. local, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
On ESPN Plus, I do believe.
I believe that is correct.
Well, everybody get your streaming services in order for TCU's game against the Mountaineers. Melissa, we've got quite a bit of other TCU athletics events to talk about. There was a baseball scrimmage on Friday night. Men's basketball had an exhibition today. Soccer has played 2 games since we recorded last. Volleyball has played 2 matches since we recorded last. Where do you want to pivot to from here?
Let's talk hoops, since you were down there this afternoon, and this is the first real look we've gotten again of TCU basketball in a actual setting against an actual opponent in a brand new stadium with excellent Wi-Fi. I heard, Jamie.
Look, first of all, yes, $125 million stadium built out there in Stephenville, Texas for Tarleton State basketball, the EECU Center. Beautiful, a smaller version of what Baylor has down in Waco. Seats about 8,000. Really nicely done, just really well done. Their Wi-Fi situation is not in order yet, and so there were some Wi-Fi struggles. They got a couple weeks to get that situated, but this was the first game that they played in the new stadium. So for those that don't know, Jamie Dixon and Billy Gillespie are really good friends. They go back a long way. And so Gillespie actually invited TCU out to be the first team that Tarleton State played in their new stadium as an exhibition. It's a good kind of first taste of what this TCU basketball team has to offer, because they have 6 new faces and 6 guys returning. And it looked like they had 6 new guys and 6 guys returning at times on the court. But overall, I thought it was a really nice, just kind of first look at the Frogs. And it reminded me a little bit of what Kirk Sarlo said after the Texas A&M scrimmage for baseball, which was, this is inexpensive experience.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't cost you anything against your record. All you get to do is go see what you've got and evaluate and create a plan for how you're going to make progress after that. And so I thought, if you're looking at this from that angle, I thought it was a really, really good day for TCU basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting the opportunity to play, open a new arena like that, it's great. And it was good just to see these new faces against actual competition. I think that a lot of what we've been talking about this offseason about where this team was going to struggle showed it wasn't necessarily impactful as TCU controlled that game. After about the first 10 minutes, I would say they were pretty handily in control. I was really excited about Brock Harding. Is just a true point guard and facilitator. I think you said in a text message that the way he controlled or facilitated the game, I guess, was really nice to see. And you think about what having a guy like that, a natural point guard, how much better it makes everybody else around them. Like, I think if last year's team had a Brock Harding, it's probably a little bit of a different story and a couple of those disappointing losses. I think that at times that offense looked like it can be really fun. They weren't necessarily hitting shots. That's fine in an exhibition. But they were getting great looks from beyond the arc. I am so excited about Bug. He is instant offense. I need to see that kid play 20 minutes a game. We've seen Jamie have to adapt his preference of never playing freshmen the last couple of seasons, and so I do think we'll get a good look at him. He's just so explosive and so fun, and does not play like a freshman in the sense that he is completely confident and secure in his ability on the court. There's just not a lot of hesitation. which is great to see. And David Punch, I thought was awesome. Like his body transformation is unbelievable. He looks refined. His 3-point shot to me looked a lot cleaner. That's something he's going to have to be able to consistently hit at least about probably 33% because he is a little bit undersized at that power forward position. But the shot just looked good. Like you can tell that kid has put the work in, and I really hope it pays off the way that he deserves it to this season.
Yeah, he's the heaviest player on the team, if you'd believe it. He's about
crazy.
he's about 250. So he holds it on his frame, I think, really well. It's going to help him, like you said, against those bigger bodies down low. But I was impressed, and let's be honest here, Tarleton State's a pretty small team. But I was impressed with the length that TCU can roll out there when you have Punch and Malik Diallo and Leotaris Lolovicius out there.
Wow,
at the
you went
same
for
time.
it.
Yeah, I don't think I said it right. Everybody,
Nobody's
so,
going to be able to prove you wrong.
No. So the Oregon State transfer, 6'8" kid with a long wingspan, really good 3-point shooter. They call him LT, and so that is not. I learned today. We talked to him after the basketball game today, and he said when he came over to the States, everyone was struggling to say his name, and so he had to come up with something. So he came up when he got to Oregon State with LT.
Oh, that's funny.
And so then he got here, and he said, like, we were talking to him, and one of the guys talking to him said, "Hey, do you have high expectations for yourself because of the other LT that was here?" And he's like, I just know he played football. I don't really know who he is yet. And I was like, hey, yeah, he's an NFL Hall of Famer. He goes, oh, great. Okay. Yeah. So
Perfect.
he's still learning a little bit about TCU and the weight of the nickname that he has chosen for himself. But I thought he had a great day. He had 11 points and 4 rebounds. He was 2 for 3 from 3-point line. He played really solid defense. He was aggressive on the boards, even when he didn't get the rebound. And they're going to need him to play pretty big this season, because if he's able to stretch the floor and Punch is able to stretch the floor and they're on the floor at the same time, I think that creates a lot of opportunity. But one of the things I noticed with that big front court today was Malik Diallo was kind of out, like just didn't know where to be some of the time. Like he didn't, if Punch was down on the low block, he didn't really want to be right next to him because then you clogged up the whole lane. But he doesn't have the shot to really stretch like the other two front court guys do when they're out there together. And so he caught a lot of passes kind of like in the 10 to 12 foot range or out at the top of the key, and then would like look around, and the Pierre and Harding would have split off in other directions, and they're like trying to work off of screens, and then he's just standing there with the ball. And so he had 3 turnovers today, got kind of caught in weird spaces at times. I think that's something that they'll be able to work out of the offense in time. But that's something to just kind of keep an eye on, is when they have that bigger front court, how do they handle the spacing? Because they've got the shooters to do it, but it looked like Diallo didn't really know where he was best suited to be at certain times. And then on the other side, when they want to go really small, they can't. They went with Pierre, Bug Edwards, Tanner Toulson, who didn't shoot well today, but showed a lot of energy. I liked what I saw from him. Micah Robinson, and then Salachum, the FIU center transfer. That's a small lineup. And the offense looked really good. That offense is the one that sparked Bug. He scored 8 straight points. He scored 8 straight points in, I believe, a minute of game time, knocking down a couple threes, and then had a really nice drive and stop for a little mid-range jumper that he flushed. But they struggled rebounding against Tarleton State. That unit did. And so against bigger teams, it's going to be really interesting to see if that smaller 5-man lineup is viable, because offensively it looks like they're going to be able to create and score, but defensively and rebounding wise, I'm not sure exactly what they can give you. So we'll have to see, but it's a good first look, I think.
Yeah, Xavier Edmonds' his first look at him too. I think he needs to play a little bit bigger than we saw, and there's just going to be an adjustment period, just like there is with Malik Diallo. Like I think that we were shocked that he gave TCU anything positive coming after that ACL he had during his senior season, and so he surprised us because the expectations were pretty much nothing, because this kid hadn't played real basketball in a year. But I think that'll be the next step in his development. He's got great footwork, but he's not really a big body. He's not a guy you expect to be able to back guys down in the post. So I think you're right. I think that'll kind of get worked out just with reps and him understanding his role this year, because his role is going to look different than it did a season ago. This team has flaws. This team has holes. We know that. They're picked to finish 10th in the conference, I believe, is kind of the preseason. We'll get a little bit more information. Media days coming up for both men's and women's basketball this week in Kansas City. Zoom rooms this time, which I'm thankful for because I was going to go up to KC, but that did not end up working out. So very appreciative of the opportunity to get to talk to the players and the coaches a little bit. That was a great move by the Big 12. But I think that this is Jamie Dixon has some pieces to play with. It'll be fun in the preseason. One of the more challenging preseason schedules we've seen from a Jamie Dixon team at TCU, to see them kind of figure out what works, what doesn't, and how he can deploy those different looks and those different lineups to be effective depending on the situation that he's facing on the other side of the court.
Yeah, he's still very clearly kind of working through what his rotations are going to be. I think he joked after the game. He said, I think we've got a lot of depth right now, but everybody thinks they've got a lot of depth right now. So we'll see how that all bears out. But the reality is he got to play everybody he wanted to play, to the point where the walk-ons got some minutes. The only guy that didn't play today was Jace Posey. He was in sweats. Didn't learn what is going on with him, but he was up and moving around and clapping for guys, so it didn't look like anything was bothering him too seriously. Might have just been precautionary for him. Another guy that I thought had a really good game was Jaden Pierre, the other guard that TCU brought in. He and Brock Harding are the representatives for TCU at Media Days this week, which is a really interesting kind of change. You talked about Dixon's challenge with playing freshmen. He has two guys who have been on campus for 3 months or less that are going to be representing TCU at Big 12 Media Days this week. And he's been so thrilled with the leadership that those guys have provided. David Punch talked about it after today's exhibition as well. Just both of those guys have stepped in and really just assumed the role of leaders. Like, they walked in the door day one and were just like, no, we're leading this thing. We're going places. Like, come on. And if you want to come with us, you'll be with us. Right. And, so it's been cool to see that from them. But Pierre today was an excellent perimeter defender, which is something that TCU is going to need, especially if they do want to play some small ball. He was a good distributor. He had 4 assists. He was 4-9 from the floor, 1 of 6 from 3-point range. He wasn't the best 3-point shooter at Providence, so I don't know how much they actually want him shooting the ball versus creating for other people, but he took open looks today. They didn't fall for him. But he did have 3 turnovers, so there was a little bit of sloppiness. Some of that was just not knowing where guys were going to be, still sorting out some of that new faces on the offense kind of stuff. But I do think that he's going to be a really valuable guy in the long run, because when Brock Harding takes a breath, he's going to have to be the primary ball handler. So it was good to see both of them working with a bunch of different lineups today. The offense clicked much better when Brock Harding was on the floor, but it was still pretty effective when Pierre was running the show.
Yeah, I'd imagine Harding's going to have to play like 34 minutes a game in Big 12 play. That would be my guess for TCU to have a legitimate shot to win games. Now, Pierre could obviously develop, and we've seen Jamie Dixon work with non-traditional kind of score first point guards and have some success. And I think when you don't have to rely on that as your number one option, there's a higher probability of you having success. But Brock Harding is going to have to stay healthy, knock on wood, and be able to, his conditioning is going to have to be pretty top notch by the time they get to Big 12 play. And because the team did, I 100% agree, look completely different. Now, again, I was watching it on the equivalent of like Super 8 film, because for all the money they spent on that arena, they did not spend it on their broadcast equipment. Yeah. It was a little bit of a rough watch, but it looked to me through the grainy footage that I could see like there's some good possibilities here.
It's funny because the broadcast was also what was on the Jumbotron for most of the game with like the stat bars on the side.
It's brand new. They're working through some things.
Look, hey, it's nicer than Schollmeyer.
Yeah.
Like it's a nicer stadium than Schollmeyer Arena is right now. So good on them for investing in it. And it was full. The lower bowl was completely full. Like the student section was full. The big donors were there. Awesome. Like they did a bunch of stuff in timeouts on the court. And we're talking about Sunday afternoon during football season while a Cowboys game is going on.
Well, nobody wants to watch that.
Hey, stop it. Stop it.
Dak had a dime to George Pickens today, I will say. An
He's
absolute
been great.
dot. Yeah,
He's
an
been
absolute
playing
dot.
at an MVP caliber this year, and the defense isn't going to allow him to have any kind of real success on the field.
But this is not a
Anywho,
Dallas Cowboys podcast, thankfully.
that was my 5 seconds of Cowboys talk. But the fact is like they clearly are very invested.
Yeah, which
in
is
basketball.
awesome.
Look at who their head coach is.
Yeah.
They have a lot of really fun transfers from Power 4 schools this year. Like I think they're going to have a little bit of success in the WAC. And so that was a fun game to see. And then obviously TCU wins 88-54. So you come away thinking like, yeah, that was exactly what it needed to be. TCU got a win. They got to see what they had. The smaller lineup for Tarleton State, I thought, put a lot of good pressure on TCU, just with their speed, their mobility. They attacked the ball a lot defensively. And so I thought that was really good for TCU to kind of have to handle. And then we get to see what TCU has against a totally different lineup next week when they scrimmage Texas, right?
Yeah.
So this was kind of the entree, or this was kind of the appetizer, and you get the exhibition entree next week against UT, and you'll really start to figure out what you got at that point. But this was a nice kind of like wade into the shallow end of the pool situation.
Yeah, perfect.
Melissa, let's jump into some soccer.
Yeah.
And then we'll finish with volleyball, because soccer 3-0'd Baylor in a really fun top 10 matchup last week. And then they followed that up on Sunday afternoon with a 3-1 win over a pretty overmatched Oklahoma State squad. I know that you've been keeping keeping tabs on this program as they creep closer and closer to postseason. But it really just feels like they're clicking at a different level right now after hitting some bumps in the road a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, they've played a really difficult stretch. When you look at that Colorado team that's ranked, and then going to Texas Tech on the road, they've had some big, heavy, emotional games, and then you have a Baylor that's ranked number 10 and is number 4 in the Super 16 come to your place, and the way they dominated the Bears, they played the kind of soccer that they want to play. Just absolutely maintained control of the ball, played kind of ball pressure, ball control, and then when they got opportunities to score, they took advantage of them. And again, like, I will bang the Seven Castaigne drum all day long. Let her kick field goals for TCU. I am here for it. She is such a special player, such an incredible talent, and when she is able to draw the defensive attention that she does, what we've seen now is some of these young players, Grace Vest and Emma Jelinski, and some of these other young players are really stepping up around her and taking advantage of opportunities. Morgan Brown finally got in the score sheet. I mean, the depth of this team and the talent that Eric Bell has compiled in Fort Worth is unbelievable. So when you look at kind of the Big 12 soccer standings as you hit the home stretch of the season here, TCU is in a really good position. They're going to need a little bit of help to win the conference. Like, they don't really control their own destiny because of that loss to Colorado. Colorado is playing really good. I'm going to pull up the standings here as I vamp just a little bit. Is that men's soccer or women's soccer? This is women's. Okay. Tying with Texas Tech. Right now, Texas Tech is in first place. TCU is in second. What we're rooting for this week, TCU fans, is Colorado and Texas Tech to tie. That is what we are rooting for. We do not want either of those teams to win that game. We want them to tie in Boulder. That's the best case scenario for TCU to possibly sneak into that 1 seed. But the Frogs they actually get to finish with a little bit of a less of a challenge. They go on the road for 2 at Arizona State. And then they get Houston at home. And so a real possibility to win out. All of those teams are below TCU in the standings, and TCU will be the better team on the field for each of those 3 games. So they can take care of business. I think you're looking at worst a 2 seed in the Big 12 tournament. Still an outside chance to win the regular season. And the best part is TCU gets to play that tournament at home. So until the championship game. And so if the Frogs get that 2 seed, get that opening round bye, win a couple of games on their home field, and then play for a championship, they have a chance to be, I think, a 2 seed is kind of where the program thinks it has a chance to be in the postseason if they just kind of handle business here the rest of the way. So, again, we're one last home game. Houston comes on October 30th, which is a Thursday night game. And then the postseason starts. So get out to Garvey, support this program. All they do consistently is win. And right now they're looking like they have the opportunity to really play their best soccer at the most important time. Jamie, you've dropped out on audio again, my friend.
I was muted
There we
because
go.
the dogs were barking.
Okay.
It's really fun. Like, this is what we've come to expect under Eric Bell with this program, right? Is like, oh man, we're talking about the situations where they need teams to tie, but it's like they're in second place in the league right now,
Yeah.
and you're kind of thinking, man, if they hadn't dropped that one game, they should be where we expected them to be, which is the front runner.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of program you can have at TCU when you have committed coaches who are at the top of their game. And we see it all across TCU athletics for the majority of the time. And Eric Bell's been one of the guys at TCU doing it for the longest at this point. So really cool to see him continuing to have the success that he is having as a coach, now the winningest coach in TCU soccer history. And it's really cool to see that he's got these girls playing at a high level at the right time. And like Melissa said, get out to Garvey Rosenthal. Like, it's an inexpensive, family friendly environment. And everybody should go and give them at least one game's worth of your time.
Yeah, it's absolutely worth your time. The atmosphere for the Baylor game, I didn't make it out. Had some stuff going on that I was dealing with, but the atmosphere Thursday night, watching on TV, it was great to see, and you can tell just how much the support means to those players and that program. In an era where soccer is forgotten about at a lot of major college campuses, it's not a place that people are investing a lot when it comes to rev share. I think that it's awesome to see that TCU really does care about keeping that program competitive. The ticketed sports are the ones that get investment. It's kind of the philosophy I think at TCU, and soccer does have a streaming deal, thankfully, with ESPN, and so you can watch all those games as well at home and away, which is a great way to grow the game. And we saw this last week, the talk about men's college soccer expanding to kind of a year-long, year-round schedule in order to prevent these teams from having to play twice a week, with talks of that happening for the women's game as well, which could be a really fascinating way to increase opportunities for programs to draw in more fans year-round, to serve as more developmental league for the professional game. There's a lot of – it's going to be interesting to watch how – soccer is treated by the NCAA over the next couple of years. I think that they're being really forward thinking and how to continue to grow their game and keep it a priority, as so many schools are going all in with either football or men's basketball at this point.
Absolutely. And you mentioned revenue sharing. The 6 teams that participate in rev sharing at TCU are football, basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, volleyball, and soccer. So those are the 6 that are a part of the TV deal with the Big 12. Those are the 6 that get revenue sharing at TCU. So you go to a football game, you're supporting them. You go to a soccer game, you're supporting them in the same way. Same with volleyball and both basketball teams and baseball as well. Let's wrap up with volleyball, Melissa, in the final few minutes of our show tonight, because they 3-1 a couple of Big 12 opponents this week, Cincinnati and Kansas State. Unlike soccer, didn't really play their best in either of these matches, but overcame some self-inflicted mistakes, kind of some extended sets here and there where they didn't quite win it cleanly. But still 3-1 over Cincinnati and Kansas State is better than the alternative at this point in the season, and they seem to just continue to be kind of moving up the rankings again.
Yeah, I mean, this is a top 10 program right now, which is an unbelievable thing to say about TCU volleyball. To see how Jason Williams continues to recruit at a high level, how he's playing with the lineups. You talk about kind of mixing and matching what Jamie Dixon is doing. We're into the middle of October, and Jason Williams, because of some injuries and because of some players kind of playing inconsistently, is having to do the same thing. There are some weak spots in that rotation, but he is really throwing some things at the wall and seeing what sticks, and he's been able to do that and still win games, which is super impressive. We are only like halfway through the Big 12 season of volleyball. This is the longest season, it feels like, of any major fall sport, with the exception of baby football. They will actually be playing to the end of football's regular season as well. There's still a lot in front of them, but this program, there's time to kind of figure out that rotation and to get right and to continue to develop some of those young players and get them up to the competitive level that they need to be for this team to accomplish its goals. But you've got a regular season Big 12 championship still firmly within your sights, with still about 6 weeks left to play, and a lot of tough competition coming up. So impressive how Williams has gotten some of these freshmen and redshirt freshmen to kind of be able to compete in really competitive Big 12 games. But there's still, I think, a lot of development that needs to happen for this team to make a deep run into the NCAA tournament, which is clearly the goal. But again, this is a top 10 program. The crowds have been awesome at Schulmeyer for volleyball. The talent is absolutely there. If they can get some consistency, I think when you look at what Sarah Sylvester has done and the records that she's breaking as a middle blocker for TCU, if you look at Becca Kelly, who's one of the most exciting players, when she is on, she like talk about scary. I do not want to be on the other side of one of her swings. And then Evan Hendricks has really stepped up in light of some of the injuries TCU's dealt with and has been just an absolute superstar. So to lose the greatest player in your program's history and Melanie Parra and to elevate your play overall, it's been really fun to see. And I think that there's still a lot ahead for this TCU volleyball program when it comes to what they want to accomplish into the postseason.
Yeah, the depth is what I was just going to add to this. The fact that he's been able to build up the amount of depth to overcome some of these injuries. There aren't many sports out there where, in this era of rev share, you can build up the kind of depth that TCU volleyball has built. And so it's been really cool to see them overcome a lot of the adversity that they've faced this year. Obviously, we would have wished that they would have been fully healthy because Lord knows this might be as a top 5 volleyball team if everyone's healthy. But
I mean, you lost an All-American
right
3 games into the season. And Jalen Gibson. So I mean, she was a potential player of the year, and yet you're still just continuing to win games. You've got a lot of young players that are having to really step up and play. Samara Coleman, the Pitt transfer, I think, is at times looked like a freshman, but has really stepped up and been there in big moments. It's impressive the way this team continues to come together, and they certainly have not played their best volleyball yet. If they can get to that point, this could be a Sweet 16 type season, or maybe even beyond that for this group.
Well, let's hope for the beyond that for both volleyball and soccer as they
soccer's college cup or bust, man. Like this
right.
team absolutely could. It's not like I think that because again, if you don't have the injuries, if Bella Diorio doesn't miss, again, another player of the year candidate. If she's out there, then this is 100% a team that can compete for national championship. But there's no reason this team can't make a run to the Final Four. Like I really do believe that they have the talent, and they're just so well coached and so disciplined. And they played such a hard schedule this year. I absolutely think a Final Four was within reach. You want some of the seeding to go your way, but it's certainly within reach.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Frogs Insider. As always, leave a rating and a review, subscribe on the YouTube channel, do all of the things that the internet people tell you to do. As far as like interacting with our content specifically goes, don't do some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's been a long 3 days. We didn't even get into baseball, but that's okay. We can do it on the next episode because I'm tired. Let's just be frank here.
We've had a long day, a long weekend, a long 3 days.
Follow Melissa at the Coach Melissa. Follow me at Frog Preacher, and we will talk to you next time. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.